Once crossing the Douluo Continent, he became Tang Han, the son of Tang Hao. He thought he would just follow the plot and lie down to win, but he found out that Tang Sangen was not in the Holy Soul village. On the day of the awakening of the martial soul, due to malnutrition, his innate soul power was only level 5, and he was looked down upon by Tang Hao. Tang Han. Bastard Tang Hao, I have been working hard and taking care of you, an alcoholic, for 4 years since I became sensible. Now, because my innate soul power is not good, I am not favored, and it is not you who ruined my future and caused my innate soul power to decline. Since you don't like me, then I don't rely on you, the Haotian Douluo. Years later. Tang San. Tang Han, the overall situation of the world will inevitably converge over time. The unification of the martial soul empire on the entire continent has been the result of the ages, benefiting the people. You cannot stop me. Tang Han. Tang San, the person who unified the whole continent is me. Tang Hao. My sons, you should revive the Haotian sect. Tang Han, Tang San. Get lost. Destroy all forces on the entire continent and personally build the supreme empire. Keywords of the novel. Douluo's breaking with Tang Hao at the beginning with no pop-ups. Douluo's breaking with Tang Hao at the beginning with no pop-ups. Complete download of TXT, latest chapter reading on Douluo's breaking with Tang Hao at the beginning. Chapter 1. Tang Han. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Tang Han Holy Soul Village. The sky was hazy and the vast white mist covered the various wooden houses in the village that were not very tall. A skinny little boy dressed in plain linen slowly ran out of a dilapidated thatched cottage emitting an unpleasant odor. He has an unhealthy wheat color, black hair, and an extremely ordinary appearance. He holds a wooden bow and arrow, and runs towards the forest on the mountain with an arrow on his back. On both sides of the cultivated land, there are already many farmers carrying hoes to cultivate. Minor cold, Xiao Han got up so early. Xiao Han went hunting again. Good morning, uncles and uncles. After saying hello, Tang Han continued to run towards the mountain. The villagers around sighed as they looked at Tang Han's thin and small back, but it was a pity that such a good child had such a father spread out. My name is Tang Han, a blue star person from my past life. My ancestors have been soldiers for 3 generations, and my 3 brothers and 2 elder brothers all went to join the army, but my 3rd brother Tang Han did not go. Since childhood, Tang Han has loved to study various firearms and weapons. His parents couldn't stop him. Once, when he was assembling his new secret weapon, the muzzle accidentally went off, and his brain went black into this world. In this world, my father's name is Tang Hao, and I'm not wrong with you. He is the Haotian Douluo Tang Ritian on the Douluo Continent, who dares to embrace the sun, the sky, the earth, the sun, the air, the sun, the moon, the sun, the grass, and the sun. When he found out that he had come to the Douluo Continent and became the son of Tang Hao, he was extremely happy. Who was Tang San, the son of Qi Yun, the future Shura, sea god, twin gods, and still his own brother. As long as you follow him, you can directly level everything in the future and achieve the pinnacle of the mainland. As Tang San's brothers, Tang Han only needs to unintentionally teach Tang San some great principles and establish brotherly relationships along the way. After all, Tang San lacks love and values family relationships immensely. As for Tang San's character, although Tang San, who later became a god, was indeed inferior to beasts and regarded all living beings as playthings and tools. But before Shrek and Dai Mubai became friends, their character couldn't be considered bad, and no one could live a life with a book, could they? The *** rule of the Tangmen rules states that Tangmen disciples are not allowed to cause trouble at will because Tang San has forgotten the school rules of Shrek Academy. So as long as my brother influences him well, it's not a dream to push the 3 major empires horizontally, pacify the entire continent, and solve the war. As a result, when I realized it, I realized that Tang San didn't even exist. At first, Tang Han thought he was Tang San, but now it seems he's not at all, otherwise he would call himself Tang San. The days that followed were the beginning of nightmares, as Tang Hao occasionally struck iron, making it difficult for his little baby to fall asleep. Little baby, he should sleep at least 2/3 of the day, but Tang Hao didn't care. When he cried loudly when he was hungry, he never knew where to get rice porridge and fed him milk. How much nutrition does rice porridge have? Even worse, sometimes the milk still spoils, and Tang Hao has a daily smell of iron filings and various unpleasant odors, which makes the house stinky. Having survived in such an environment for 2 years without dying is truly Tang Han's destiny. When Tang Han was 2 years old and could walk freely, it was even more tragic. He did housework, but Tang Haonong still did iron and rice. But one day, Tang Han was so hungry that he could not stand making a bowl of congee himself, and Tang Hao saw him making rice. Tragedy, tragedy, a real damn tragedy. Fortunately, the people in Xinghan village are kind-hearted. They often give food to their families, especially village head Jack. Otherwise, Tang Hanjin will drink congee every year. He really doesn't know whether he can live to the present. Tang Han really envies the protagonist Bibidong in the novel, Man in Douluo, abandoned by Tang Hao at the beginning, written by dog author Qijian, although the name is not very pleasant to hear. At the beginning, was the top 3 talented young people in China, and became the 3 talented young people in Douluo. This persona is too impressive to be beaten. But as he grew step by step, his personality underwent 3 transformations and finally grew into a decisive warrior, who regarded all the nobles of the 2 empires as playthings and the Shrek 7 monsters as chess pieces in the martial soul hall of the Pope Bibidong. His wrist and strength are simply stunning. It's really satisfying to see this. Well, actually I was jealous. Why did he cross the time and become the son of Tang Hao? He could go to the martial soul hall and be adopted by Bibidong, living a young master's life. He also became childhood sweethearts with the 2 top human beauties, Qian Renxue and Gu Yuna, and successfully achieved success. Later on, he sang loudly and reached the pinnacle of his life, but I ended up in such a miserable situation. After reading that book, Tang Han also learned what disgusting thing the Tang family of Haotian sect was. At first, Tang Han thought the author was Xiao Haizi. When Xuanwen read it, he saw a sentence in the book about his adoptive mother Bibidong and the female protagonist Qian Renxue being bad. After the protagonist beat up and down the martial soul hall across time and space, the Saint Helena was also disfigured by him with a slap, destroying her meridians. Only then did he think about it carefully. This evaluation is completely correct. The Tang family is simply a collection of the small island kingdom and the Bangzi kingdom, the dirt of the mainland. If it weren't for Tang Han being Tang Hao's son, Tang Hao would have been grateful for his upbringing, and he would have cursed long ago. At noon, covered in mud, Tang Han walked towards home carrying 2 big rabbits. Xiao Han, come here. On the way, a friendly and kind old man waved to Tang Han. He looked like he was in his 60s, with a slender figure but a lively spirit. His clothes were clean and tidy, and his hair was meticulously combed. This was the village chief of Holy Soul Village, Old Jack. Grandpa Jack. Tang Han smiled from the bottom of his heart and looked at Jack village chief with a grateful expression. It was the old man who often brought food to his family, and sometimes even pork. Without him, Tang Han would not have been able to even pull a bow, let alone go hunting. Old Jack looked at Tang Han covered in mud, with some bloodstains on his clothes. He held 2 wild rabbits in his hand and let out a light sigh. His dry hands rubbed Tang Han's head and said, "Child, I've wronged you. It was a naive and happy day, but I went to do something that only a great person could do. Grandpa Jack, I won't be wronged. The children of the poor have long been in charge." Tang Han forced a smile, but only he knew the pain in his heart. Is it possible to take care of a Douluo with a title in your home, or is it the fifth strongest person in mainland China who needs to be taken care of like a lazy person? Xiao Han, 3 days later, the Soul Master from the Martial Soul Hall will come to our Holy Soul Village to awaken the martial soul for this year's children. Old Jack said solemnly, each of us has our own martial soul, and around the age of 6, we will undergo an awakening ceremony. With a martial soul, it will enhance our abilities in certain aspects. Even the most ordinary martial soul will be helpful. If you have an excellent martial soul, then you can become a human being and never be wronged again. As a fan of Douluo Continent, Tang Han naturally knows everything about soul masters, so he doesn't need to ask much. Instead, he thinks that I am finally about to turn over. Blue Silver Emperor, Haotian Hammer, twin top martial souls, you are waiting for me. Grandpa Jack, I will go awaken my martial soul in 3 days. Jack, the village chief, nodded kindly and said, Grandpa will come and pick you up then. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Martial Soul Hall Tang San. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Martial Soul Hall Tang San. Dad, I'm back. As soon as he entered the house, Tang Han frowned. He smelled the burnt smell and looked in the direction of the stove. If I guess correctly, Tang Hao slept in all morning and didn't even go to eat breakfast. Tang Hao's lazy voice rang out from inside the room, call me when you have prepared lunch. Tang Han sighed, shook his head, stepped on the wooden chair, and opened the big iron pan. The water in the iron pan had already evaporated, and all the congee inside had been burnt. This time, Tang Han did not throw the burnt rice from the pot into the trash can, but instead presented it to the bowl for lunch. Even though the rice is already burnt, there is still nutrition inside. Adding some water and wrapping it in rabbit meat can still be eaten. There are only 3 days left until the awakening of the martial soul. Tang Han must supplement his nutrition, otherwise his future will be ruined due to poor physical nutrition and insufficient innate soul power. Eating burnt food may cause cancer, but as long as Tang Han awakens his martial soul, possesses soul power, and strengthens his body, cancer cells do not exist. He once said to Tang Hao if we could go hunting in the mountains together, but Tang Hao just replied lightly, you can do hunting to get game. I'll make money from my family's forge. In an area at the border of 2 empires, in a magnificent building, a sturdy and fair-skinned little boy is sitting on the rooftop practicing, surrounded by faint soul power fluctuations. This little boy is Tang San, who jumped off a cliff from the Tang Gate in Bashu with clear aspirations. Since Tang San woke up from his coma, he has arrived at this magnificent palace. After 6 years of study, Tang San also learned that this place is called the Martial Soul Hall, the holy land of soul masters in the whole continent, and the strongest force in the continent. After learning these things, Tang San was extremely excited, because the peak period of the Ba Shu Tang sect in his previous life was the strongest sect in the martial arts world, and no one dared to match it. After a moment, Tang San opened his eyes and a faint purple hue flickered in them. With a dejected sigh, the boy made a helpless expression that should never have appeared at his age, shook his head, and muttered to himself, it still doesn't work. My Xiantian Gong still can't break through the bottleneck of the first level. It's been a whole year now, why is it? Even the purple extreme demon eyes, which rely on purple chi to come from the east and can only be practiced in the morning, have been improving. Xiantian Gong can't break through the bottleneck, and my Xuanyu hand can't be further improved. When I was practicing, I didn't seem to encounter such a situation between the first and second levels. Xiantian Gong has a total of 9 levels, why is this first level so troublesome? Is this world different from my original world? Although the purple extreme demon eye and ghost shadow, which were cultivated with the help of purple chi from the east, have been growing, the Xian Jade Hand and Xian Tian Gong are always stuck in the top priority. Third brother, you are indeed here. A stunning woman with orange shoulder-length short hair, dressed in a fox costume and fox earrings, jumped up and grabbed Tang San's small face with her jade hand, starting to pinch it. Nana, can you stop pinching my face all the time? I'm already quite old, Tang San said helplessly. I don't know if it's due to fate or coincidence, or for some reason, he was also named Tang San in this world. Qian Dao Lu. Fart. When Tang Hao lost you, he called you Xiao San, otherwise I would have asked you to call him Tang San. Tang Richen is still around. Although sometimes people use his name, Xiao San, to make fun of him, Tang San doesn't care much. As for Nana, of course she is the little fox from the martial soul hall, Hulaina. At the age of 6, Hulaina's martial soul awakened and displayed a super strong talent. Her innate soul power was as high as 9.7 levels, and she was a top-notch martial soul demon fox. She was then taken as a disciple by Pope Bibidong. Later, Hulaina discovered this Tang San while playing in Jugue Douluo. Although Tang San has an ordinary appearance, his small face is extremely fair and has a touch, and Tang San occasionally gives people a feeling of maturity. So Hulina's pride caused a stir in her heart, and her desire to become a sister erupted. Afterwards, she kept pestering Tang San to call her sister. Due to Tang San's first encounter with such a beautiful woman and Hulaina's constant teasing, Tang San was unable to resist and had to call Hulaina Nana's sister. Why, can't sister pinch your face? Hulina spoke coquettishly, with her hands inserted into her waist, revealing her graceful curves without a doubt. Tang San glanced up and quickly lowered his head, his face slightly red. Upon seeing this, Hulaina lowered her head and saw what made Tang San blush. She coquettishly said, "Junior brother, your thoughts are not pure." Tang San quickly defended himself, "Nana, I really didn't." But Hulina didn't believe it at all. In the Martial Soul Academy, almost everyone said the same, whether it was a little kid or anyone else. Just a coquettish snort, you still have a long way to go in pursuit of your sister. Today is the day when you awaken your martial soul. Sister comes to call you in person after school, isn't it moving? After the awakening of the martial soul and becoming a disciple of the Pope, Hulina had already thought about becoming her husband. He needed beauty and talent to be her. If there is no one in this world who combines these two things, then Hulina would rather not marry for a lifetime. If Tang San's talent is not very good, then Hulina will still be good to Tang San, but if Tang San really pursues her, the answer is, I only treat you as my younger brother. Awakening Hall. Hulaina held Tang San's hand and arrived here, with people around her bowing in unison. Hulaina's identity is very high in the Martial Soul Hall. Except for the old men in the Elder Hall and the Worship Hall, almost everyone thinks that Hulaina will be the next saint of the Martial Soul Hall. Nana. X2 The only people outside the Martial Soul Hall who call Hulaina Nana, apart from Bibidong, are Evil Moon and Licking Dog Yen. Xiaoyu walked over and patted Tang San's shoulder, saying, Xiao San, in the blink of an eye, you have also reached the age to awaken your martial soul. Brother Xiaoyu, Tang San replied with a smile. As a beloved sister and a madman, Evil Moon sees that Hulaina and Tang San have a harmonious relationship, and she loves her house and is extremely friendly to Tang San. Meanwhile, Yen on the side felt a little displeased as Hulaina held Tang San's hand and let out a soft snort. Compared to Tang San in the original Holy Soul Village, Tang San in the Martial Soul Hall is much more cheerful. In the past, there were various medicinal baths for Jugue Douluo, where herbs were cultivated from a young age. Tang San also studied herbs with Ju Douluo in his spare time. Later, he was accompanied by the emotional companionship of Hulaina and Xiaoyu. Compared to being in darkness in his previous life and wholeheartedly completing the strongest hidden weapon of the Tang clan, Tang San now has a lot more in his heart. At the same time, Tang San also read many books in this world and heard Hulaina talk about the great things of the Martial Soul Hall. In order to adapt to this different world, Tang San's thinking has added many things. P.S. The anime is about Chrysanthemum Ghost chasing Tang Hao and being cast a shadow in his heart by Tang Hao. The original work is about two other titled Douluo who were beaten to death and injured by Tang Hao. Please refer to the original novel. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Crazy Woman Bibidong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Crazy Woman Bibidong. The one who helped Tang San awaken his martial soul was Ju Douluo from the Ju Gue Douluo, who had raised Tang San with one hand. Chrysanthemum Grandpa, Ghost Grandpa, Tang San shouted. Tang San doesn't have any strange thoughts about Ju Douluo, who likes to wear women's clothing and put on heavy makeup. In his past life, there were even men and women in love in the Tang clan. What is a mere woman's clothing? Otherwise, Tang San would have died at the age of 29 as a virgin. You should know that he is the first genius in the outside world. Third, step into the formation, Grandpa will awaken your martial soul. Chrysanthemum Douluo's effeminate voice rang out. Tang San nodded and walked into the formation. Being in the martial soul hall, Tang San can naturally awaken his martial soul at an old age. He doesn't need to wait for the specialized personnel of the martial soul hall, Taoge, to come and awaken his martial soul like Tang Han did. Tang San walked into the hexagonal array, and Ju Douluo activated his soul power. Tang San's whole body was enveloped in a light golden light, forming a light shield. He seemed to have entered a warm world, with a barrier breaking open and two things running out of his body. Tang San lifted his right hand and a blue-silver grass with golden patterns appeared. When it appeared, Tang San's appearance underwent a earth-shattering change. His original black short hair had changed to long hair and waist length, and his color had changed to a deep blue. His ordinary little face had also become white, tender, and delicate. He must have grown up to be a handsome and beautiful man. This scene stunned the evil moon, Hulina, and Yen on the side. What the hell, awakening the martial soul and bringing beauty. This is the ultimate martial soul blue-silver king. At this moment, Tang San lifted his left hand and a small hammer appeared, emitting a strong black light. Twin martial souls, that's the Haotian hammer. XN, everyone exclaimed in surprise. Upon hearing this, Tang San was somewhat worried. When he revealed his top-notch martial soul, the blue-silver queen, everyone was surprised. When he revealed his little hammer martial soul, the atmosphere in the awakened hall appeared somewhat eerie, and everyone's gaze at him became very complicated. Ju Douluo forced a smile and said, "Third, your martial soul awakening has been completed. Let's take a look at your innate soul power." Tang San placed his hand on the crystal ball, which shone brightly. Innate soul power. XN twin martial souls, innate full of soul power, this is a genius no less than under the papal crown. Nana, why don't you take the mistress to the martial soul city for a stroll? I have something else to do with the old ghost. Yes, Elder Chrysanthemum. Hulina walked over and took Tang San's hand, saying, "Third, let's go shopping with my sister." Hulina looked at Tang San's delicate face, reached out to pinch it, and her little heart was instantly pierced. I secretly swear in my heart that no matter what identity the mistress has, she will be my younger brother, and as a sister, I will naturally protect my younger brother. Tang San also knew that the current atmosphere was not suitable for questioning, nodded, and followed Hulina outside. Xiaoyu's face was complex, and she sighed as she followed. Yen clenched her fists, and Tang San's beauty and talent made him feel a sense of crisis. Ju Douluo said, "Old ghost, let's go report to the Pope." Douluo nodded and their figures flashed towards the Pope's basilica. In the spacious papal palace, a stunning figure sits on the papal throne, holding a scepter adorned with countless gemstones and dressed in magnificent and noble palace attire, exuding a graceful and majestic aura. "Elder Chrysanthemum, what's up with Elder Ghost?" A pleasant yet majestic voice came from Bibi's mouth. Chrysanthemum Ghost Douluo quickly knelt down on one knee and clasped his fists. The two of them were extremely aware of the ruthlessness of the stunning beauty in front of them. Chrysanthemum Douluo said, under the crown of the Pope, Tang San has awakened his martial soul. Upon hearing this, Bibidong became interested and said, "Is Haotian hammer a martial soul? What is the level of innate soul power?" As the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall, Tang San naturally knew her identity very well. If it weren't for Tang Hao's heavy injury to Qinshuan back then, she wouldn't have had the chance to kill Qinshuan for revenge. Therefore, Tang Hao can be considered her benefactor, so for Tang San, Bibidong is in an indifferent attitude, allowing Tang San to grow up in the Martial Soul Hall like an ordinary child. Ju Douluo whispered, "Under the crown of the Pope, Tang San awakened his twin martial souls, the Blue Silver King, and the Haotian Hammer, possessing innate soul power." Twin martial souls, innate full soul power. Bibidong's pupils shrank, and Tang San's talent was no less than hers. If he could cultivate Tang San's future achievements well, he might even surpass her. Thinking of this, Bibidong's eyes flashed with a vague killing intent. Chrysanthemum Ghost Elder, Haotian cultivates Tang San and provides absolute resource support for Tang San. Upon hearing this, Ju Gui Douluo's eyes lit up and he said, "Obey me. X2, let's go down." Bibidong waved his hand, and Chrysanthemum Ghost Douluo left. The magnificent papal hall once again became empty. A faint purple aura rushed into Bibidong's mind. Bibidong's eyes turned blood red, and he turned his head to look towards the direction of the Douluo Hall. There was a huge angel statue, which represented the inheritance position of the angel throne and also the foundation of the angel family. "Qian Dao Lu, you think if you give me the papal position, I will become a chess piece in your hands that you can freely control and wait for Qian Renshue to return. Wrong. The entire martial soul city is almost under my control. Qinshuan's illness has destroyed me, and sooner or later I will also destroy your angel clan and completely uproot its foundation. Tang San, a descendant of Haotian sect, your mother was killed by Qinshuan disease. If he were to know about this, how would he treat your angelic clan? You are the merciful one who will eventually lead to the destruction of the angel clan, ha ha ha." Bibidong burst out laughing. At this moment, Bibidong is like a crazy woman, with a beautiful face full of madness. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Taoge appears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Taoge appears. Holy Soul Village. Tang Han shouted, "Dad, the food is ready." In no time, the curtain inside the door was lifted, and a tall figure walked out with a slightly unsteady step. That is a middle-aged man who looks almost 50 years old, but his figure is very tall and burly, but his attire is really beyond praise. Wearing a torn robe, without even patches on top, revealing the antique bronze skin underneath. The originally decent features were covered in a layer of wax yellow, with a sleepy appearance. The hair was messy like a bird's nest, and the beard on his face had not been tidied up for many days. His gaze was dull and yellow. Although it had been a night, the pungent smell of alcohol on his body still made Tang Han furrow his brows, so he directly carried the rabbit meat to eat outside. Such a strong alcohol smell, it smells so bad that there is no appetite to eat. Tang Hao didn't care about this either. He took down the wine pot from the cabinet on the side and drank while eating rabbit meat after drinking congee. After half a sound, Tang Han sitting at the door heard Tang Hao's shout. "Xiao Han, if you have any work, take it on first. I'll do it later tonight, and I'll go take a nap." Upon hearing these words, Tang Han sighed helplessly and was given the title of Douluo. He didn't sleep for a few days and had nothing to do, while Tang Hao spent 3/5 of the day sleeping, most of the time drinking, and the last 3 or 4 hours forging iron. He is a renowned Douluo and one of the 3 great craftsmen in mainland China. Even forging iron requires him, a 6-year-old brat. Tang Han is well aware that it was his mother Ayan's sacrifice that caused Tang Hao to become like this ghost, but this is not your reason for mistreating me. Didn't Chihiro get seriously injured by you? The outside world says you killed Qinshuan disease, and you also think so. What are you doing to me? As for the Haotian sect, what is a selfish and self-interested bullshit who abandoned his disciples? If I have the strength, I will first dismantle this bullshit sect, then dismantle the martial soul hall, and become the pope. Although his heart was filled with resentment, Tang Han still replied, I understand. After washing the dishes, Tang Hao's snoring had already begun. Tang Han walked towards the fireplace, struggled to move a few pieces of raw iron, and then peeled open the thatch that was padded with the raw iron. There were exquisite parts, magazines, and several bullets underground in the thatch. Tang Han smiled slightly. What is the nickname of Douluo Continent? It is a fantasy floor tile, with hidden weapons that can kill gods. With one AK-47, it can penetrate the entire continent. For this, Tang Han spent several years crafting the parts of the pistol while Tang Hao was sleeping, and now only assembly was left. Tang Han didn't want to build stronger firearms. Firstly, the materials were not allowed, and secondly, the pistol was completely sufficient at first. Even Zhuge Shen crossbow can hang and attack soul masters below the soul king, but that pistol can still pierce through the soul emperor. Thirdly, he is afraid of being discovered by Tang Hao. At least Tang Hao is also a title Douluo, or a level 95 title Douluo. Bows and arrows are easy to say. If Tang Han were to hunt with a pistol, the power of the pistol would be so great. What would Tang Hao think if he found out? How should Tang Han explain? He will be in danger by then. Then, pulling up the bellows, Tang Han swung a 10-pound heavy iron hammer and struggled to strike a piece of raw iron. The stronger the body, the more abundant the nutrition, and in the future, awakening the martial soul may lead to a resurgence of innate soul power based on the excellent genes of parents. Think about Udashi, the most useless soul master in the history of Douluo Continent. He was unable to carry the golden holy dragon martial soul due to his poor physical condition and insufficient innate soul power, resulting in the failure of the martial soul mutation to become Luo Sanpao. Without the appearance of Tang San, this product will always be an iron waste. 2 days passed quickly. Xiaohan, Grandpa has come to pick you up. Old Jack arrived at the blacksmith's shop on time. Tang Han, who was having breakfast with Tang Hao, heard old Jack's voice and his eyes lit up. It was because he knew he was going to awaken the Wulin this morning that Tang Han did not go hunting. He told Tang Hao to get up to eat after Kanji was ready. Tang Hao's eyes fixed and he said in a deep voice, Xiaohan, where did old Jack ask you to go? Grandpa Jack asked me to awaken my martial soul. Tang Han hesitated for a moment and replied. He remembered very clearly that Tang Hao in the original work didn't seem to want Tang Sangen to be a soul master, and would rather he be a blacksmith. Tang Hao felt a little displeased upon hearing this and said, awakening martial soul, why didn't you tell me? Isn't it common sense to awaken the martial soul at the age of 6? Every year, 6-year-old children in Holy Soul Village go to awaken their martial soul on this day, and I don't think it's necessary to tell Dad. Upon hearing this, Tang Hao nodded, with no expression on his face, and then said, since it's awakening the martial soul, then you can go and don't delay making lunch. Tang Han agreed and then walked out of the blacksmith shop. Under the leadership of old Jack, Tang Han followed him to the martial soul hall in the center of the village. Of course, this so-called martial soul hall is just a larger wooden house. At this moment, there were already 7 children standing on the field, and their gaze towards Tang Han was somewhat disdainful. The reason why these children look down on Tang Han is simple. Tang Hao's family is the poorest in the entire Holy Soul Village. His father, Tang Hao, is not only irresponsible but also an alcoholic who drinks heavily. He is looked down upon by the whole village and serves as a negative example for all the children in the village. In this case, if these young and inexperienced children can look up to Tang Hao's son Tang Han, they will have ghosts. As for the original saying of valuing poverty and wealth, this may be true, but may every child be like this? Is this the case with every household? In this way, the Holy Soul Village is peaceful. As the village head, old Jack may still be so kind. You should know that the virtues of a village head can fully reflect what the village really looks like. In addition to the 7 children, there is also a handsome young man with sword star eyebrows in the martial soul hall. He is currently carrying his hands on his back, wearing a white power suit and a black cloak behind his back. In the center of his chest, there is a fist-sized soul character with a faint arrogance between his eyebrows. Seeing him, Tang Han's eyes lit up, and Su Yuntao, the model worker of the martial soul hall and the legendary blind-eyed king, appeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Martial Soul Awakening, Innate Soul Power Level 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Martial Soul Awakening, Innate Soul Power Level 5. Hello, respected War Soul Master, I would like to trouble you this time. Old Jack respectfully saluted the young man. Su Yuntao bowed slightly, not too salty or indifferent, as a gesture of gratitude. I don't have much time, let's start now. Return the gift. Tang Han's mouth curved upwards. Many readers with a god's perspective know how suspenseful Tang San will be in the future, and they disdain Su Yuntao for being just a great soul master who is so powerful that he can push the heavenly king lousy. Little did they know that in the world of Douluo, being able to become a soul master is already a true human being. Whether the opponent is a soul master or a great soul master, their status has been completely separated from the people. It is very polite for Su Yuntao, as the soul master of the martial soul hall, the top power in the world, to be able to repay a gift to an ordinary person. If the object of old Jack's salute is changed to the nobles of the 2 empires, it is estimated that the nobles will turn back with a garbage-like gaze, and even kick old Jack away with a kick, saying, "Low people, dirty old man's eyes, get out of here." Take a look at the attitude of a gatekeeper towards old Jack when he went to the Soul Master Academy in Notting City. He scolded old Jack as a stinky beggar, and it was obvious that he looked down upon others. And the aristocracy is even more, competing for power and profit, following the crowd, the lower class licking the stinky feet of the upper class squeezing, beating and cursing, and looking down on the lower class. The lower class only vent their anger on the lower class people, which is the root of human evil. From these, it can be seen that the martial soul hall is much better than the 2 empires. The only regret is that the leader is a crazy woman with a sick mind. That crazy woman did not manage the martial soul hall well, resulting in scum like Miles in Gingshin City. Minor cold at this moment, old Jack patted Tang Han's shoulder, his face full of kindness. "What's wrong with Grandpa Jack?" Old Jack said, "Martial soul is not good, you can't become a soul master. It's not a big deal. You have good arrow skills and can definitely make a living by hunting." "I know, Grandpa Jack." Tang Han smiled gently. He knew that old Jack was really good to him. When he came into this world, the only person who truly treated him well and made him feel true family affection was old Jack. Later, old Jack said, "Children, this is the Soul Master from Notting City. Next, he will lead you to unlock your own martial souls. You must cooperate well with the Master to awaken your martial souls. Grandpa looks forward to someone among you who can become a Soul Master." After Su Yuntao's impatient words and old Jack's sighs, old Jack walked out of the martial soul hall and the awakening of the martial soul officially began. Su Yuntao threw out 6 round black stones, waved and sprinkled them, and then laid a hexagon on the ground. "Take out another crystal ball." Then Su Yuntao whispered, "Lone wolf, possessed." 1 white and 1 yellow, 2 soul rings rose from him. At the same time, Su Yuntao's body rapidly expanded, filled with a sense of power, and his eyes turned green. Many children were stunned and took a step back, with fear and awe in their eyes. Tang Han's eyes were filled with a longing for the martial soul. Su Yuntao said gently, "Don't be afraid, children. This is my martial soul, the lone wolf. Martial souls are all kinds. If you awaken the lone wolf martial soul and have soul power, you can also become like me in the future. Upon hearing Su Yuntao's words, the children's fear slowly dissipated, and their eyes were filled with a longing for martial souls. Alright, children, line up from left to right. After Su Yuntao finished speaking, the children immediately moved around and wanted to stand on the far left. However, Tang Han extended his hand and pushed all the children aside. Tang Han went hunting in the mountains at a young age. Even though he lived in an environment with poor nutrition, he still exercised some muscles and skills, which is naturally not comparable to these little brats. What protagonist only appeared last? Tang Han said, "Get out of here, it's a waste of my time. Is it interesting to pretend to be forced and slap me in the face? I'm full and I'm doing nothing." For the children's playfulness, Su Yuntao didn't show much expression. He had already passed this age, and then pointed his finger and said, "You, go in." Tang Han followed suit and walked into the hexagonal array. Su Yuntao quickly activated his soul power, and the twins shot several green lights that merged into the array. The magic array lit up with a golden light, enveloping Tang Han. Then Tang Han felt something break open in his body, and two small things popped out. 2. Tang Han's mouth curved upwards. Twin martial souls, Blue Silver Emperor, Haotian Hammer, you finally appeared. Extend your right hand. Su Yuntao's green eyes stared at the boy, their eyes lit up because Tang Han had a golden light shining out of him, indicating that Tang Han might have soul power. Perhaps Su Yuntao had a good start this time. Tang Han extended his right hand and held it tightly with his left hand to prevent the Haotian hammer from popping out. Blue Silver Grass. Abandoned martial soul. Su Yuntao let out a light sigh, and the joy on his face disappeared. The blue silver grass in front of him was no different from the blue silver grass on the roadside. He was just a useless martial soul, and even if his ancestral tomb emitted green smoke, his innate soul power could not exceed level 1. He was also a hopeless child. Su Yuntao said, "Your martial soul is blue silver grass, a weapon martial soul. Come and press your hand on the crystal ball to see if you have soul power." Su Yuntao handed over the crystal ball next to him, and he didn't forget to say to the 7 children next to him, "Children, you see clearly. When this child puts his hand on it, if the crystal ball shines, he says he has innate soul power and can practice, with the hope of becoming a soul master. If no light is useful, it means there is no soul power at all. Without innate soul power, one can never become a soul master." When the crystal ball came in front of him, Tang Han raised his hand and pressed it against the blue crystal ball. In the next moment, a dazzling light emanated from the crystal ball. Su Yuntao said in some surprise, "Innate soul power, level 5. Not bad, much stronger than I used to be. Unfortunately, why is the martial soul blue silver grass? If it weren't blue silver grass, but some other powerful martial souls, your achievements could far surpass mine." Su Yuntao sighed and felt sorry for Tang Han. Looking at Tang Han's stunned face, Su Yuntao thought Tang Han was scared and waved in front of him. What Su Yuntao didn't know was that at this moment, Tang Han was in his own world, heartbroken, and said, "Innate soul power level 5. Level 5. How could it be? Laozi had twin martial souls, his mother was the Blue Silver Emperor, and his father was the rare genius of the Haotian sect, Tang Hao. As a result, his innate soul power was level 5. Tang Han, wake up, wake up." Su Yuntao patted Tang Han's face, as he had just learned his name from other children. Upon hearing Su Yuntao's voice, Tang Han regained his senses and forced a smile, saying, "Thank you, Master Su Yuntao, for helping me awaken my martial soul." "It's just a responsibility," Su Yuntao replied. Tang Han, who walked to the side, quickly swept away the gloom in his heart. What was he afraid of? Isn't it just innate soul power level 5? I have twin martial souls, and my soul rings are full. Maybe I can reach the Soul King. When the rifle and sniper rifle come together, no matter how Douluo blocks me, I will still be invincible, Douluo. Then vigorously knock on the fairy grass, and by then, who can block me with the only fantasy floor tiles? Level 5 is enough. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Breaking with Tang Hao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Breaking with Tang Hao. Next, Su Yuntao awakened the martial souls of the 7 children behind him. As one child after another awakened, Su Yuntao's joy in awakening Tang Han's innate 5th level soul power dissipated completely. 7 children, none of whom possess soul power. The last girl to awaken the blue-silver grass martial soul, Su Yuntao originally had a hint of luck in his heart, but the girl's innate soul power was still 0. The door opened and old Jack nervously welcomed Su Yuntao. Master, how about it? Is it possible for the children in our village to become soul masters this year? Su Yuntao looked at him and sighed, saying, there is one, it's just a pity. Old Jack's heart trembled as he tentatively asked, Master, what a pity it is. Su Yuntao said, among these 8 children this year, only one has soul power, and it is still innate and can reach level 5. Unfortunately, his martial soul is blue-silver grass. Do you understand? Blue-silver grass. Innate level 5 soul power. It's a pity. Jack's disappointed expression was even more severe than Su Yuntao's. What old Jack hopes for the most in his life is to have another soul saint in his village, with an innate soul power of level 5. If it is a top-level martial soul struggling, it is indeed possible, but why is the martial soul a blue-silver grass? Su Yuntao patted old Jack's shoulder and walked towards the next village. Grandpa Jack, I have awakened my martial soul, and my innate soul power is level 5. Tang Han walked up to old Jack and said. What, Xiao Han? Your innate soul power is level 5, that's great. Old Jack was pleasantly surprised and said, what's the matter with not being able to give birth to a soul saint? Their village has another one that can become a soul master, which can be compared to the other villages that have never been able to give birth to a soul master. Old Jack crouched down and said to Tang Han face to face, Xiao Han, tell Grandpa if you are willing to go to a specialized school to learn the cultivation methods of soul masters. Only there can there be the most accurate knowledge about martial souls. Of course I would. Tang Han said, fighting for Tang Hao's opinion, he is seeking a ghost. Even if Tang Hao opposes him, he will go. As long as he becomes a soul master and obtains the first soul ring, he will receive a monthly soul master subsidy of 1 gold soul coin. Who wants to stay here all this time and live such a difficult life? He is always worried that Tang Hao will find out if he has problems. Although this may sound a bit unpleasant, it is what a normal person should say. He is not lacking in his beloved child Tang San, unaware of the hustle and bustle of the outside world. Let's go, Xiao Han. Grandpa will take you home. Old Jack sneaked back to the other children and asked their parents to take them away, then he took Tang Han with him. In the morning, it was Tang Hao's usual sleeping time, and the entire blacksmith shop was quiet. Old Jack pushed open the door and cursed every day, saying, Tang Hao, you're a dead drunkard. You're usually lazy and have to have a child to take care of it. You and hashtag amp, 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 amp. In short, it was all kinds of cursing. Watching Tang Han's mouth twitching beside him, who said that Tang Liang was the first to spit on the mainland. In his eyes, it was clearly our Jack God King. For 6 years, Tang Hao had become immune to old Jack's insults and only yawned, leaning against the door frame and saying, Old Jack. Old Jack couldn't help but say, today is the awakening of the child's martial soul, the most important day in life. His parents personally pick him up and drop him off, so it's better for you to just sleep. Upon hearing this, Tang Hao looked at Tang Han and said, Xiao Han, what is your martial soul? Tang Han said, Dad, it's blue-silver grass. Blue-silver grass. Upon hearing these words, Tang Hao's tall body trembled for a moment, and a special gaze also appeared in his eyes. In old Jack's mind, Tang Hao was just a useless, sloppy and alcoholic. He lazily glanced at him and said, "Tang Hao, do you know that although Xiao Han is just a blue-silver grass martial soul, his innate soul power is as high as level 5. I have decided to give Xiao Han the quota for working-class students in the village this year, and let him study at the Junior Soul Master Academy in Notting City. The travel expenses will be covered by the village." What? Innate soul power level 5. Tang Haoman looked up with an incredulous expression and even anger in his eyes, but it only calmed down in an instant and he said in a deep voice, "No way." Before old Jack could reply, Tang Han said, "Why, Dad? Are you going to ruin my future?" Tang Hao gave Tang Han a cold glance and said, "So what about the 5th level of innate soul power? Blue-silver grass, what do you think blue-silver grass's martial soul can be cultivated into? It's just a useless martial soul. I only know who will cook for me after you leave. Don't you know it yourself?" Tang Han was angry for the first time. Tang Hao was not sure that he had the Haotian hammer. If he only practiced with blue-silver grass, he would break through the heavenly Soul Zune in the future. Would the Soul Zune martial soul hall of blue-silver grass also care and be able to discover his true identity? What are you saying? Tang Hao became completely angry and raised his hand as if he wanted to slap Tang Han. Tang Hao, old Jack angrily stood in front of Tang Han and looked at him with fiery eyes. "What's wrong with what Xiao Han said? You're such a big person, don't you know how to cook? You still want to beat children. When Xiao Han becomes a soul master and leads a life of being a human being, your life will also improve, and you can continue to be your lazy man." Looking at old Jack's thin and hunched back, I don't know why Tang Han feels so tall and heartwarming. My child is arranged by my father like this, and I said he's not allowed to become a soul master. Tang Hao couldn't suppress his anger, and the air around him became suppressed. Tang Hao. Grandpa Jack, don't be angry. I still won't learn the ability of a soul master. Dad is right, blue-silver grass is just a useless martial soul. Thank you for your kindness. Tang Han suddenly felt something and quickly approached old Jack, saying. Finally, with a serious warning, old Jack left the room. After seeing off old Jack, Tang Han slowly walked back to the blacksmith's shop. Surprisingly, Tang Hao did not return to his room to continue sleeping, but sat in a chair, closed his eyes and focused. Tang Han walked up to Tang Hao and said, "Dad, actually I have 2 martial souls." Tang Han remembers very clearly that Tang San allowed him to become a soul master because he claimed to have a second martial soul. Although he did not have innate full soul power, he still wanted to give it a try. Upon hearing this, Tang Hao quickly opened his eyes and said, "Is your second martial soul a small hammer?" Tang Hao's voice became even more suppressed, as if something was about to explode. Tang Han nodded and extended his left hand to release the small hammer. After Tang Hao thoroughly saw the Haotian hammer martial soul in Tang Han's hand, he slapped it directly. The heavy slap directly flew Tang Han away, causing 4 teeth to fall off and blood to flow from the corners of his mouth. "Waste, you don't deserve to be my Tang Hao's son." Tang Hao's eyes were filled with endless anger. If Tang Han were just a blue-silver grass soul innate level 5, he would be disappointed for a while at most, and then feel lucky again. After all, he didn't want Tang Han to become a soul master and face danger in the future. But knowing that Tang Han had awakened the Haotian hammer soul, he couldn't bear it anymore. Who is Tang Han's mother? The blue-silver Emperor Ian, and he himself is a rare genius of Haotian sect in 100 years. As a result, Tang Han's innate soul power is only 5 levels. It should be noted that the direct disciples of Haotian sect who awaken the Haotian hammer, except for Tang Yuehua, who has mutated martial souls, have the lowest innate soul power of 5 levels. His son's innate soul power is also 5 levels, which is simply throwing himself in the face of Tang Hao. After slapping him, Tang Hao left and ignored Tang Han. Tang Han covered his face, the side being fanned had already swollen, and one eye had turned blood red, with tears flowing from it. I am not worthy to be your son. Tang Hao, do you think I'm rare to be your son? Because of your irresponsibility, I Tang Han suffered so much hardship and suffered so much blindness. Since you look down on me, from now on, I, Tang Han, will sever my father-son relationship with you. I have used this slap to repay your nurturing kindness, and have worked tirelessly for the past 4 years. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Cost of Strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Cost of Strength. Opening the original iron, taking out the pistol parts and bullets below, and carrying the bow and arrow on his back, Tang Han left the blacksmith shop without looking back. Although he was slapped by Tang Hao and lost 4 teeth, Tang Han did not feel any pain, but rather felt relieved. Since arriving in Douluo Continent and knowing that he was the son of Tang Hao, he has never been so refreshed as he is today. He seems to have seen rebirth, and from today on, Tang Han will not be bound. He is no longer Tang Han, who has any relationship with the Tang family of Emperor Haotian, but Tang Han, who can do anything without restraint. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for achieving great enlightenment, breaking free from the constraints of the Tang family's identity, awakening the system, and distributing a large gift package for meeting. Suddenly, a voice rang out in Tang Han's mind. Nanny. System. Meeting gift package. Tang Han's body paused. Is this the golden finger of every traveler, like my fellow villager, the medicine elder in the Yan Emperor Xiaohua's ring? Tang Han silently said in his heart. The male voice rang out, yes, dear host, I have been following your growth for the past 4 years. For 4 years, the white eyes of the children around you have completely calmed your mind, and the simple people around you have given you a grateful heart. Breaking away from Tang Hao and breaking away from the most disgusting Tang family identity in the Douluo Continent today, this system is completely willing to bind with you. Great, system. May I ask what is my meeting gift package? Tang Han had a feeling of sweetness after suffering, that all the hardships he had endured before were for the sake of the current outbreak. The system repository can be opened, and the host can view and store precious items at any time. System warehouse. Complete theory of Wulin, complete encyclopedia of spirits and beasts, the 9 Yang manual, 2 soul rings bestowed by God, Shelon world skill, moon chase, Yuzibo spot technique, and 500 gold soul coins. I posted, with these, can I grow up invincible directly? God bestowed 2 soul rings, the highest quality soul rings at the beginning, laying a solid foundation. The body technique of Yuji Boban can sweep thousands of troops and horses with just one use of body technique. Without the blessing of the Sharingan, he can still kick the immortal song with just 1 foot, and is praised by all Fire Shadow fans as the existence of Ban. The 9 Yang manual, like the Shentian skill, has 9 layers, but whether the 9 Yang manual can directly explode the Shentian skill, whether it is soul power recovery or injury recovery, it is more powerful, and it can automatically protect the master from external attacks and become an immortal body. Yuzhua, that's even more impressive. The ancient Xiaolan, who destroyed the sky and earth, also used Yuzhua to run on the road. Ikengxi used it quickly and could run tens of thousands of meters in just a second. At that time, he was still a Tai Chi Xiaolan. What is the strength of Tai Chi Xiaolan? Ikengxi and Feiqi are fighting against each other. With the blessing of several Xiaolan, Feng Sun and Qianye Xianglong finally blew up a small hill. Tai Chi Xiaolan is just the strength of Soul Saint. Give me the system now. Tang Han quickly said. Host, fusion is possible, but there is no free lunch in the world. To integrate these, one must accept the corresponding mission. Tang Hanshuan asked, mission, what mission? Currently, the Douluo Continent is mainly divided into 3 major forces. The Martial Soul Hall, the Heavenly Do Empire, and the Star Luo Empire. Each of the three major forces wants to unify the continent. The aristocrats of the Heavenly Dou Empire and the Star Luo Empire indulged in extravagance and debauchery, constantly squeezing the common people, causing them to rot to the bone from top to bottom. The martial soul hall is okay, but unfortunately, Qian Daolu only wanted to become a deity and no longer manage it. Today, the Pope Bibidong is a crazy woman who is determined to destroy the mainland. He did not manage the martial soul hall well, causing many worms to appear and gradually losing its original radiance. Therefore, none of these three major forces are allowed to pacify the mainland in this system. Tang Han's lips wriggled, leaving a cold sweat on his forehead. System, you don't want me to eliminate all the forces on the mainland and unify the whole continent, do you? Wrong. Upon hearing these two words, Tang Han reluctantly breathed a sigh of relief. In the martial soul hall, it was too difficult for Yu Xiaojiang to restrict Bibidong, and Yu Xiaojiang, this disgusting person, Tang Han didn't want to worship him as his teacher. This system not only requires you to pacify the entire continent, but also to liberate all soul beasts on the continent. Tang Han. Ooh. If you don't accept this mission, the system will leave, and you won't be able to obtain these. Tang Han remained silent for a moment and said in a deep voice, System, why did you choose me? The sound of the system became more serious, because you are a descendant of a combination of humans and beasts, not only possessing half of the human bloodline but also half of the animal bloodline. Tang Han, you are the first or second half-orc born in the millions of years since the birth of the human and soul beast clans. You must shoulder this mission. After a moment of contemplation, Tang Han said, Come on, I am willing to take on this mission. Let the system come. After breaking away from the Tang family, how dare Tang Han use the Haotian hammer in front of the world before growing up? With only the blue-silver grass, there is no way to cultivate to the end of the Soul Master. Although he can rely on receiving a few years of Soul Master subsidies, eat and wait for death for a lifetime, as a traveler, who doesn't want to shine once, who doesn't want to stand in that position with countless colorful lights and enjoy the worship of the world. Even if he fails midway, he still manages to make a name for himself. Great, if the host abandons its mission in the future, then this system will allow the host to live happily for 100 years. Tang Han felt a chill in his back when he heard this, and then a lot of information suddenly appeared in his brain, including the running route of the Nine Yang Manual, physical combat skills, the running route of the monthly soul chasing force, all the knowledge of the Wulin theory and the encyclopedia of spirits and beasts. The sudden surge of knowledge made Tang Han kneel on the ground in a cold sweat. After a while, Tang Han opened his eyes. Unlike before, his eyes were now full of determination. He turned to look at the dilapidated thatched cottage in front of him and shouted, Tang Hao, I will make you regret it. In the thatched cottage, Tang Hao lay on the Kong and slowly opened his eyes. When he heard what Tang Han said, a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. I still regret it. The innate soul power has already determined the future of a soul master, without strong support from resources. Even if all the soul rings of the martial souls in both hands are full, Tang Han's future breakthrough through the sky is just a soul king. Such strength is nothing for the Haotian sect. And even if the soul king doesn't arrive, he may die. Thinking of this, Tang Hao's eyes burst with endless killing intent, but soon, his eyes became decadent again. Tang Hao may only be able to do this in his lifetime. Then Tang Hao's eyes closed again and he fell into a coma. Next stop, not in college, reward 1 divine soul ring. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Not in college. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Not in college. Who's here? Old Jack's aged voice rang out. After the door opened, old Jack's eyes widened instantly and he angrily said, Xiao Han, who did it? Who beat you up like this? Grandpa, go and beg for an explanation for you. Tang Han shook his head and smiled, Grandpa Jack, no need. The value of my slap has broken the shackles that exist on me. Xiao Han, what's going on here? Old Jack's eyes were red, and it was some damn dog that had attacked such a sensible child. The child not only had a big bruise on his face, but also lost 4 teeth. Tang Han had no choice but to speak up about the matter, but what he said was 3 parts true and 7 parts false. What, just because you want to become a soul master, Tang Hao doesn't allow him to admit that you are his son anymore. He slapped you and kicked you out. Xiao Han, let's go. Follow Grandpa to find Tang Hao. Grandpa will go and ask for an explanation for you. If Tang Hao still dares to drive you away, Grandpa will drive him out of Holy Soul Village. Old Jack was furious and grabbed Tang Han's hand as he spoke, walking towards Tang Hao's house. Grandpa Jack, no need. He can drive me away, so I don't have to work so hard. Tang Han quickly grabbed Old Jack's hand, not wanting anything to happen to him. After some debate, Old Jack finally gave up the idea of seeking an explanation from Tang Haoshuan and let out a deep sigh. Poor child, you've lost your mother since childhood, and now even your father. After a struggle, Old Jack finally gave up. Tang Han asked, Grandpa Jack, I don't have a place to live anymore. Can I stay with you during this time? Old Jack kindly said, it's possible for Xiao Han, it's completely possible. Grandpa Jack has been living alone in such a big house, and sometimes he really feels very lonely. Old Jack's house is a brick and tile house, much sturdier than a thatched cottage. It is also very clean inside, and there is no unpleasant smell in the air. After Old Jack led Tang Han in, he pointed to the room and said, Xiao Han, can you sleep there? Well, Grandpa Jack. Time soon arrived in the evening, and Old Jack seemed to have killed a chicken and stewed chicken soup to celebrate Tang Han's arrival. Old Jack is very kind, really good. He treats Tang Han like his own grandson. After 3 months, Tang Han, who was originally thin and small, has become much stronger. His previously unhealthy wheat-colored skin has also become whiter, and his height has caught up with the shortest 6-year-old boy in the village. In 3 months, Tang Han has entered the initial stage of the 9-yang manual cultivation through the 9-yang manual meridian movement diagram that seems to be engraved in his mind. He has transformed all the 5 levels of innate soul power into the 9-yang manual internal power. As for breaking through the level of Tang Han, he has not dared to be discovered by Tang Hao, but he has never stopped accumulating soul power. As for the cultivation of Tang Han, he always closes the doors and windows tightly, nestled in the blanket with caution. Although Old Jack's house is a few hundred meters away from Tang Hao's house, who knows if the tidal Douluo has such a long-range perception. In the morning, Tang Han often goes to the mountains to get some game back for barbecue, steam, and exchange some money. Sometimes he pinches his shoulders and beats his legs for Old Jack, and inputs the internal power of the 9-yang manual into Old Jack's body to relieve the pain accumulated in his body over the years. Under the power of the 9-yang manual, Old Jack seemed 10 years younger, and he didn't need a crutch to walk. 3 months later, the two of them, one big and one small, seemed to have truly become a pair of grandparents and grandchildren, enjoying a happy and harmonious life of family. Since severing his father-son relationship with Tang Hao has never come to find him, and Tang Han has also visited his home several times without entering. Once on the road, I met Tang Hao, who was buying wine and returning home. Tang Hao didn't even glance at him throughout the journey. He took a sip of the wine with each step until he walked past him. In the evening, Old Jack leaned against the wooden chair and looked at the bright sunset, while Tang Han pinched his shoulder behind Old Jack. Xiao Han, not in college is starting tomorrow, said Old Jack, feeling both happy and sad in his heart. Happiness naturally means that Tang Han can receive a good education, while sadness means that there is no one to accompany him as an old man anymore. Grandpa Jack, as soon as school is closed, I will come back to see your elderly family, Tang Han smiled. 3 months later, Tang Han called him Old Jack. Although he was still Jack's grandfather, in his heart, Old Jack was no different from his own grandfather. Old Jack's eyes flickered and he said with a heavy heart, Xiao Han, Grandpa Jack has no ability and can only stay in a small place like Holy Soul Village for his whole life. He has never seen the exciting world outside, but Grandpa Jack also knows that the Soul Master world is much more complex than he imagined, and even dangerous. Don't cause trouble when you go to Notting College. Study hard, cultivate well, eat well, drink well, dress well, sleep well, and make many friends. Grandpa Jack doesn't ask you to become a soul saint in the Holy Soul Village, but only hopes that you will be happy every day and make many friends. Grandpa, I will. Tang Han nodded and thought to himself, I will not only become a soul saint, but also the most powerful existence in the world, standing up for you, Grandpa, who have lived a poor life but have not gained much. The next morning, Tang Han and Old Jack changed into clean and tidy clothes. Outside the door, Old Jack shouted, Xiao Han, what are you still doing? It's time to go. Here. Tang Han placed a small cloth bag under Old Jack's bed. Inside the bag were 10 golden soul coins and wrote a note before carrying the package and walking out. In the thatched cottage, Tang Hao, who usually sleeps in the morning, rarely opens his dim yellow eyes and senses the familiar breath before leaving. The road is chosen by you, and you are responsible for reaching any level, whether you live or die. On the way to Notting College, Old Jack had been teaching Tang Han what he knew about soul masters. Tang Han pretended to be extremely serious and nodded from time to time. Tang Han is well aware of these things, having read the original work and researched some Douluo information, he knows much more detailed than Old Jack. Notting Junior Soul Master Academy is located in the west of Notting City. Old Jack asked passers-by several times and finally brought Tang Han here. From afar, they had already seen a tall arch, which was 20 meters wide and 10 meters high. It was made of hard rock and had 2 iron gates below, which were dark. In the center of the arch, there are 4 large characters, Notting College. Surprisingly, it is made of top-quality refined iron, which costs at least 1,000 soul coins. I didn't expect a primary school located in a small city on the 18th tier to be so wealthy. At this moment, the sound of the system rang in Tang Han's mind. Notting College has arrived, divine soul ring rewards are being distributed. Current system space. Complete collection of martial soul theory, Encyclopedia of Soul Beasts, 3 divine bestowed soul rings, 490 gold soul coins, 1 small pistol, and 5 bullets. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Great Web of Pyramid Marketing appears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Great Web of Pyramid Marketing appears. Old Jack and Tang Han had just walked to the front door when they were immediately stopped by the young man guarding the door. The young man looked up and down at Old Jack and Tang Han for a moment and sneered, What are you doing? Is this the place where you rural people can come? Old Jack smiled and said, This little brother, we are from Holy Soul Village. This child is a working-class student sent by our village this year. Do you think we need to go through what procedures? The gatekeeper frowned and said with a somewhat sinister tone, Can a golden phoenix still emerge from a grass nest? Some people in a small village also have soul power. The college has not had any part-time students for many years. You are not imposters, are you? Old Jack's face flashed with anger, but he adhered to the attitude that more things are better than less, and wanted to ask Tang Han to take out the work-study procedures. Unexpectedly, a gentle breeze blew by his side, and Tang Han stepped on the moon, transforming into a shadow. He stepped forward and hooked the young man's back knee, causing him to lose balance. Then, he grabbed the young man's collar and pulled him down, pressing him down on the ground, making a zero-distance contact with the earth. Although learning the 9-Yang manual is just an entry stage, Tang Han's strength has reached 100 kilograms, which is easy to beat an ordinary person. Tang Han said coldly, The power of a soul master is stronger than that of ordinary people. I can subdue you. Do you think I have soul power? Rural bumpkin, you have the courage to take action against me. Are you living impatiently? The young man below, as the gatekeeper of Notting College, apart from the soul masters and children with some background in the city, who wouldn't respect him respectfully, now a country bumpkin dares to attack him. Minor cold old Jack advised Tang Han to stop, he didn't want to cause trouble. Grandpa Jack, the more you give in to certain people, the more they push their noses and face, like him. As Tang Han spoke, he reached out with both hands and directly removed the young man's left wrist, causing a pig-like scream to sound. Stop. Just then, a slightly hoarse voice sounded, stopping the gatekeeper's movements. Tang Han turned his head and saw a man of medium build, slightly thin, who had already arrived by their side at some point. It looks like this person is around 4 or 50 years old, with black short hair in 3 or 7 separate parts. Their appearance is very ordinary, with hands behind their backs, but they have a special temperament on their body. There is a hint of laziness and decadence in the opening and closing of their eyes. Is this the pyramid scheme of the thick-skinned, narcissistic, soft rice king, and second hypocrite in the legendary Douluo world? The young man looked up at the familiar black and white bachelor's uniform and immediately cried, "Master, you're back. This country bumpkin hit me. Enough, do you still think it's not embarrassing enough?" Yudashi just glanced at the guard and looked at Tang Han gently, saying, "Children, let him go. I apologize for what happened earlier." Yudashi spoke with a sincere expression, but a hint of warmth in his eyes betrayed his attitude. A child, even if they have innate soul power, is slightly stronger than an ordinary child if they don't know how to use it at most. And the child in front of them can easily defeat an adult, and this child comes from the countryside, indicating that this child must have high innate soul power and extremely extraordinary martial soul. Tang Han's gaze was fixed on Yudashi, his gaze fluctuating, and the corners of his mouth rising without any trace. Looking at Tang Han's gaze, I don't know why Yudashi had a feeling of being seen through. The nodding gate can be seen from a distance, and the original work, Little Tang San and Old Jack, clashed with the gatekeeper for at least a minute. Old Jack was constantly harassed and humiliated until Yudashi slowly came to stop him. Unfortunately, Yudashi still had a cultivation level of 29, which indicates that Yudashi did not care about the plight of ordinary people. However, it's also true that as a superior soul master and from the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex family, caring is the only way to call it a ghost. After learning about Little Tang San's talent, this jade-wet bully sincerely apologized to Old Jack, brushing a wave of Tang San's favor and giving Tang San some trust. Quickly, Tang Han connected the young man's wrist and let him up. As a newcomer to the school, Tang Han didn't want to make things worse. The master gave the gatekeeper a faint glance and said, "This is the first and last time. If it happens again, you don't have to stay." Cold sweat broke out from behind the gatekeeper, and he quickly responded and dodged to the side. Later, Yudashi said to Old Jack, "Sir, let me handle this child and I will take him to register." Old Jack saw that Yudashi had a high status in the college, and there was also Dashi's name there. He instructed Tang Han a few words before returning. "Xiao Han, write a letter to Grandpa when it's time for vacation. Grandpa will come to pick you up." Tang Han nodded and said, "I know Grandpa. I'll come back by myself then." Afterwards, Tang Han walked into Notting College and saw Yudashi reaching out as if wanting to hold his hand. Tang Han put his hand behind his back and did not reach it out. Regarding this, Yudashi was neither angry nor angry, but smiled and said, "I didn't expect that besides being brave and extraordinary, you are also very intelligent. You know you can't trust others casually. Children, do you know the level of martial souls in this world?" Yudashi continued. Seeing Tang Han's surprised gaze, Yudashi said, "The martial soul levels in this world are divided into 7 types. Useless martial soul, low-level martial soul, intermediate martial soul, high-level martial soul, top-grade martial soul, top-level martial soul, and divine-level martial soul. The stronger the martial soul, the better the cleansing effect it brings to the host during awakening. For example, the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex martial soul in top-level martial souls will definitely awaken, and its host's physical fitness will increase several times. Even a child and an adult can win by twisting their wrists at the end. Yudashi's eyes were filled with pride. To put it another way, Tang San's blue-silver grass has awakened to become the blue-silver emperor for the second time, and his entire body has undergone direct plastic surgery. His appearance has gone from ordinary to comparable to Dai Mubai, Oscar, and others. And you were able to easily defeat an adult just now. Although there were clever elements inside, the most important thing should be that your martial soul awakening greatly improved your physical fitness. I think your martial soul should be top-notch, even top-level. Yudashi said, with his hands behind his back, half bent to look at Tang Han, with an expression that I had already seen through. Tang Han has 3 black lines on his eyebrows. What is it? The moon chase, the 9 yang manual and internal power. Master Ban's physical skills and fighting skills have become an ingenious element here. You are so good. End of this chapter. Chapter 10 Tang Han. Treat me like a white mouse, joke. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Tang Han treats me like a white mouse, joke. But Tang Han didn't mock anything either, because ruling out the possibility of cheating, what Yudashi said was also correct. So Tang Han said, so what? This statement made Yudashi a bit confused. So, wasn't it that you eagerly handed over the work-study procedures to Ben Dashi, so that he could see what your martial soul was, and then show off some of your talents? Then you sincerely asked me to accept you as a disciple, and finally, I used it to teach a genius to become a strong person in the world, thus making him famous and achieving the true name of Dashi. Is there something wrong with this script? Yudashi coughed and said, child, do you know why the children of those big families in the Soul Master realm have more advantages? Because the strong elders of those big families can help younger generations hunt the most suitable soul rings, Tang Han replied. Yes, but this is just one thing, and more importantly, theoretical knowledge. Those big families that have been passed down for hundreds or even thousands of years have long had their own set of soul beasts hunted by each soul ring. These are all based on the records of their hunting of various soul beasts and obtaining soul skills for thousands of years. The knowledge accumulated by these big families over thousands of years is simply not comparable to the knowledge collected in libraries of low-level soul masters like not in college, especially the development path of martial souls. Speaking of this, the sound of jade dampness increased by a few decibels. The development path of a person's martial soul is extremely important, which almost lays the foundation for a soul master's future. If one goes wrong, it will have a fatal impact on the soul master's future achievements. As a recognized master of martial soul theory in the soul master realm, I have studied almost all martial souls in the world, and my understanding of martial souls is almost at the top level of the soul master realm. At the end, Yudashi had her hands on her back and facing the sun. Under the sunlight, Yudashi looked like an omniscient expert. After all, I just want to see my martial soul. If my martial soul quality and innate soul power are both high, then take me as my disciple. This big trick is to deceive Tang San, who has never seen much in the world and has a mind full of Xiantian treasure records and hidden weapons. Let's just forget about deceiving me. Adhering to the mentality of not bothering him in the future, Tang Han said, then, sure, help me take a look at my martial soul. Yudashi's eyes finally lit up and he carefully examined Tang Han's work student certificate. Tang Han, Innate Soul Power Level 5. Seeing the Innate Soul Power Level 5, Jade wet eyebrows slightly furrowed. Martial Soul Blue-Silver Grass. Abandoned Martial Soul. How could it be, why is the innate soul power so low? The martial soul is still a useless martial soul like blue-silver grass. Yudashi felt that all the saliva he had just had was wasted. He was talking about top-level martial souls with extremely high innate soul power, but reality slapped him in the face. It was completely a 2-level reversal, making him look like a clown. Yudashi still hesitated and asked, "Child, is your martial soul really like blue-silver grass?" Tang Han nodded and raised his right hand to release his martial soul. Seeing the blue grass scattered all over Tang Han's hands like a rotten street, Yudashi felt heavy and his martial soul was undoubtedly useless. However, Yudashi quickly realized that something was wrong. According to his theory of plagiarism and research, the limit of innate soul power is directly proportional to the quality of martial soul. How could a useless martial soul blue-silver grass possibly have innate 5th-level soul power? "Tang Han, do you have 2 martial souls?" said Yudashi. "2 martial souls, what does that mean? Can a person have 2 martial souls?" Actor Tang Han went online with a bewildered and curious expression on his face. Coupled with his childlike appearance, it was difficult to arouse suspicion. "It seems not." Yudashi sighed inwardly, wondering how the rare twin martial souls could appear so easily, still in such a small place. "Wait, since it's not a twin martial soul, how can a useless martial soul possess innate level 5 soul power?" A wise expression flashed in Yudashi's eyes. If he could understand why the innate soul power of the abandoned martial soul reached level 5 from Tang Han and then release it, Yudashi could also make a name for himself and achieve the true theoretical name of the Soul Master World. So Yudashi said seriously, "Tang Han, is it very likely that you, the blue-silver grass martial soul, have a problem?" "There's a problem, Big Wet." "What do you mean by this?" Yudashi carried her hands behind her and said in a deep voice, "According to one of my top 10 core competencies in martial soul, the limit of innate soul power is directly proportional to the quality of the martial soul. Blue-silver grass, a useless martial soul, cannot carry innate level 5 soul power unless the variation of the martial soul makes the grade stronger. But your blue-silver grass is the most ordinary blue-silver grass. That's why I said there may be a problem with your martial soul. I'm worried that this martial soul may cause some damage to your body, so I want to study it. Treat me like a little white mouse, right?" Tang Han's voice became cold. Yudashi quickly denied and said, No, I'm thinking for your safety. If your martial soul is really problematic, then you're in danger. I understand my body and don't need you to worry about it." Tang Han took away his work student procedures from Yudashi's hand and walked over Yudashi towards the direction of the teaching building. "Wait, Tang Han, listen to me." Yudashi grabbed Tang Han's shoulder with his wet hand, unwilling to let go of this opportunity to make a name for himself. "Don't touch me." Tang Han coldly glanced at Yudashi, who was frightened by Tang Han's sharp gaze and unconsciously let go. "Don't treat me like a fool, I know your little plan very well." Finally, casting a glance at Yudashi, Tang Han left. Watching Tang Han leave, Yudashi let out a deep sigh. How could a 6-year-old kid have so many ulterior motives? If I had known him earlier, he would have gone through a few more twists and turns. Finally, Yudashi had no choice but to walk towards her dormitory. End of this chapter.